What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. I hope you all are going to enjoy this one because I absolutely am. It's going to be another growing guide in our continued series of complete growing guides here on the channel. And this is actually going to be one of the last ones we're going to be doing for a while because this is the last tropical plant in our collection. Now, obviously, we'll be adding more on, so when we get more plants and we keep growing them and get them up and growing in our collection, we'll make sure to do more growing guides. Also, once summer rolls around, we'll be doing a lot more vegetables and fruits as well. So definitely by no means the last growing guide, just the last growing guide for a little while. So I'm so glad you guys have been enjoying them though. Your response has been awesome, and so many of you have gone out and gotten these plants and shared pictures of your collection as it's growing, and it just fires me up. It's so exciting. So this is going to be the last one we're going to be doing, which is dragon fruit. And dragon fruit is hands down the easiest of all of these to grow. It's probably the easiest plant you'll grow, period, because it's a cacti, and or it's a cactus. Cacti grow very well. This cactus is a dragon fruit. It's like, that's the one thing I always get hung up on, the cacti cactus thing. So I'm gonna try not to butcher it, but we're gonna jump on into it. We're gonna have a ton of fun. And if you're ready to have fun, I am too. So the first thing I want to talk about is when it comes to soil and watering, because obviously I want to get these two right off the checklist there. They are extremely easy. Just make sure that your soil is about 70% sand. They grow in a desert. They're desert plants, but they do need a little bit of moisture because these are known as tropical cactuses, tropical cacti. See, I already did it. Someone count how many times I mess up the plural names. I won't be counting myself because I'm going to be worrying about this growing guide. I'll leave you to the counting. And I'm going to try not to mess up. So cacti grow in a very wide range of climates, but generally they're found either tropically or in a desert. And these are tropical cacti, but they do prefer more arid, dry climates. So what we've simply gone and done is we've taken a basic potting mix and mixed it with about 70% of our playground sand. We get a 50-pound bag from Lowe's. It's like $3. It's super, super cheap, but it adds a ton of drainage, which is very important because cacti in general, regardless if it's tropical or desert, does not like a lot of standing water around the roots, and it will suffer from root rot. So that's all we've gone and done for the soil. Very simple. Just make sure it's super well draining. The next thing we've gone and done is we've decreased the watering dramatically because it's a cacti. Because it's a cactus. Dang it. So because this is a cactus, we water this only about once a month. And that is probably even more than it really needs, but there's not a great way of knowing when this cactus here needs to be watered because it doesn't have leaves like some of our other plants in our collection that wilt. These don't wilt. They just shrivel and they start to just decrease in size because they're basically succulents. They hold all their moisture in their leaves, and that's how they use their water as a reserve during the dry season. The next thing I do want to talk about is fertilizing, because fertilizing is also another total non-issue with growing cacti. So dragon fruit, they don't mind it at all what type of fertilizer you give them. I just like to make sure that it has a good balance of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. As long as it's got those three, you're fine. These again are fruiting cacti, so they're not going to really need a whole lot of nutrients until they get to their fruiting stage anyways. And in the climates they grow in, they're growing in pretty much pure sand, and that means that almost any nutrients that were there are gone by the end of the season anyways because they drain so freely through the soil. So by that, I just pretty much give them Trifecta Plus. If I give them any, it's like a tablespoon a year. They really don't need that much to grow, and they do really well. At this size, I give them about a tablespoon. Once they start getting up to fruiting size, I'd give them about 3 tablespoons because obviously they're getting ready to fruit. They are taking a lot of energy, and they are putting a ton of effort into putting that fruit out. So I would give them a little bit more when that time comes. But right now, they're kind of just on autopilot. So don't worry about the fertilizing. That's super easy. The next thing I want to talk about is temperature, because obviously this is another super easy one. Temperature for growing dragon fruit is just warm. They're a tropical cacti, like I said. So dragon fruits typically like something above 70 degrees. We have them in our house, If I do go to move it outside, which I don't typically because they break really easy, which is another thing I'll talk about in the kind of care portion of this video, I don't typically move it around a lot. If I do, it's to move it down here under these grow lights or upstairs to the windows upstairs. 2 pretty simple moves a year, and I don't like to move it any more than that. But it just needs to be someplace that's warm. So make sure it's above 70 degrees and you're fine. Now, obviously, the warmer the better when it comes to dragon fruit because of the climate they grow in. They'll tolerate up to 100 degrees without a problem. 105, they're still probably fine. 110 is really where you get a little bit too hot. Again, they grow in the desert. They do fine at 110. They're used to that, but not for very long. So if you're someone that lives in like Arizona, you're going to grow these very well. But typically, if they're cultivated, you want to put some shade cloth over them when they get that hot because they will stress in that type of temperature. The final thing that I did want to talk about is when it comes to some care stuff, because there's really not a whole lot more to growing these, but they do have some care things that I do want to mention. The first thing is support. These are not your average cacti. These will grow and trail, and they're more of a trailing or a vining cacti. Dragon fruits need some support, otherwise they will go absolutely crazy on you. As you can see, I've got some just some wooden skewers thrown in here, and those little wooden stakes help to kind of support it in a triangle. And then when it gets big enough, I'll just take some twine and wrap it up so that it can be supported. But basically, you just need some type of support because they will fall over. They're not strong. They're not strong plants at all. They're very top heavy. And as you can see, they also snap very easily as well. And so the support helps them to stand upright without snapping. Because if you let them just grow along the ground, they're guaranteed to snap as soon as you move them because they're just super top heavy. And the pads are only connected by a tiny little bit of, as you can see there, tiny little bit of plant material connecting the 2 pads. So that is why they're very important to trellis. Also, when you do trellis them, they're going to get very tall. These dragon fruit here will get about 3 to 5 feet tall before they start fruiting. And so you're going to need pretty much like a tomato cage. A tall tomato cage works great for trellising these up. And then the other care tip too is what happens if they break? Because actually that is what has happened numerous times to this plant. If it does happen to break, cacti are extremely easy to reroot. Just simply take that pad, set it in the soil, make sure it's buried a little bit and keep it damp, keep it humid. That's the only time I'd really keep it super humid. And it will set down roots within a couple weeks and you're totally fine. Again, that's what happened to this one. I've rerooted it probably 3 times, maybe 4 even, and it doesn't mind it. It just keeps regrowing, and then when it snaps, it started all over. It's fine. Obviously, that does set back how long it takes for it to flower and fruit, but it's a fun plant to grow nonetheless. The final thing that I did want to mention is flowering and fruiting. So when it comes to taking care of your dragon fruit, flowering only occurs 1 night of the entire year. 1 night. On that night, it is vital to hand pollinate if you're going to get any fruit. These are not something that you want to just leave for multiple days. It's not something you want to set outside because there's no bees that are going to pollinate it. And that's because it flowers at night. Dragon fruit are actually pollinated by fruit bats, believe it or not. And the fruit bats are what carry the pollen from flower to flower. And so since there's no bees out, you can't put it outside. And since there's no fruit bats here in Michigan, even if we did put it outside, it wouldn't get pollinated. So you need to take your finger and you need to pollinate it with your finger in order to get fruit. And that will happen at about 3 to 3.5 years old. And this plant will obviously, it'll be much, much larger by that time. And when that time comes, it'll usually put out about 2 or 3 flowers on a plant when it first fruits. So you don't have to worry. Just make sure you touch each flower with your finger, really rub it around really well, make sure it's pollinated, and you're fine. The last thing that I thought I would mention is the thorns. So these plants do have thorns on them, but the thorns are not like traditional thorns that you'd see on most cacti. These are they're very tough. You know, I'm poking them right now, and I mean, if you grab them, they'll stab you. If it falls on you, they'll stab you. If you bump into it, they'll stab you. But you don't have to worry as much. I think dragonfruit gets a really bad rep because it is in the cacti family, but it is by no means like normal cacti. This is a cactus that has so few thorns and they're so obvious where they are that I would consider this almost like a basic houseplant to grow. Obviously, if kids are around, make sure it's out of reach for them, or if pets are around, make sure it's not where they could bump into it, things like that. But, or you bumping into it too, for that matter. But I would feel very confident putting this in my house, and it's something that I really could see me growing for a long period of time, even with the little one running around. I mean, I've gotten poked by them a couple times during transplanting, or if I bumped up against it, but it's not sharp. So if you're someone that's worried about growing cactuses or cacti, and you don't want to grow cacti because you just don't want to get pricked, this is definitely not in that category. And so that's really all there is to growing the dragon fruit. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. If you did, make sure to let me know in the comments box below. And also, let me know if you tried growing dragon fruit. And if you've gotten into fruit, I'd love to hear that as well. But until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something new. Make sure to like this video, share it with a friend if you thought they'd enjoy it, because they probably will. And as always, we'll catch y'all on the next episode. Grow big or go home. Bye.